Welcome everybody to the Fall Line with KS and Company and Mr. Michael Rogan. Yes, we have Michael Rogan back. We're debating whether we're going to have to change the logo now to add Michael to that. But my wife thinks that Michael will have to go in front of KS and Company if we do that, Angelo.
Doesn't bode well for us.
I know it doesn't bode well for us at all. But hey, what are you going to do?
You guys ought to really hand this podcast over to somebody with like personality.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. No, tell your wife, Dave. No, it's just fine the way it is.
Hey, just fine. I'll let her know that. But yeah, she's loving it.
I'm probably about to run out of information and material that's useful to people. So people are going to get bored and turn it off anyway.
Well, there's been popular demand for Robin. So we'll see how this one goes having you back. They really wanted Robin, you know?
Well, that's up to you. You were able to talk to her last time.
Yeah.
You just got to ask.
She's good. She's definitely going to be asked very soon. So why don't we start off? We were talking about page 46, and I bet a lot of members went and started searching what's on page 46. They might ask me at the exam, page 46, but on page 46 it talks a lot about pole use. It goes on to page 47, and we were just wondering if we could chat a little bit about pole usage and even poles themselves. I mean, there's been a lot of, I know the team members dropping their pole length over the last few years. I know I have with their direction. But we're just looking at some of your thoughts on poles and pole usage.
That's interesting because when I said page 46, I really was unaware of what actually was on page 46. It was the idea of knowing by heart a page, but as it turns out to be page 46, and you want to talk about ski poles, I'm gonna adhere back to my original statements about knowing exactly by word for word what page 46 says, because I got some thoughts about ski poles for sure. I would say that there has been a general tendency for them to get shorter, and from a technical point of view, I think we over time realized that we didn't ski necessarily at our height. We were probably a little bit shorter than that from within our basic athletic stance. And then as you go from turn to turn and, up and over, may have fallen out of fashion for a little bit, versus flex or stay even across or something like that. But, that all affects ski pole length. I think the old tried and true way of, stand on the ground and grab a ski pole under the basket, and the basket in your arm is at 90 degrees. I think that's an okay place to start. But like anything, if somebody come to me, and people certainly have over the last couple of years, well, bunches of years, as I was playing around with it, and as Dave, as you say, through suggestion of teammates of mine. I mean, it's just an evolution of everything. I mean, it's just something that we as pros should examine from time to time and go, okay, what's the rationale? What is my thought process behind what it is I'm trying to do? And then what are those decisions that influence those? I would tell anybody who says, look, I see Rogan's got a shorter ski pole, and therefore I should have one. I would say that's hogwash. You need to maybe ask the questions about why, or is that the case, or what does that do for you? And then you have to go out and make a decision on your own. It's, so I guess to get right to your question, it needs to be something that is done out of, just questioning, wondering, seeing how it applies. We're going to see that a lot, I think, probably in our time together here tonight. But, they've been shorter. Why? Because my stance got shorter. I didn't go up and over quite as much as before. So a ski pole that was long, for me, it seemed as it, in order to clear the snow, it kind of went up and around, and the basket got a little bit higher than the grip, and that then influences my shoulders, and they start to come around and tip in and rotate a little bit. And all of that was just to feel like the ski pole cleared the ground or the snow so that I could then plant it. And a little bit shorter of a ski pole, I didn't have that effect as much. So I started to play with the length of the ski pole, and fortunately, Lakey makes a really good pole, a Vario pole that adjusts. And I mean, today, for example, out teaching, I probably use 4 different settings on that. You know, in the morning, I had some beginners that they did the same thing, but they couldn't. There was a tall guy, and his were kind of too short, and he really couldn't push. So I gave him mine and lengthened him up a little bit so that he had some leverage to push on. So there was a reason for him to have a longer ski pole. I then had an intermediate lady who was looking to try and ski some moguls for the first time. And I think conventional wisdom would say, oh, you're going to ski bumps, you should have a little short ski pole. But I mean, moguls and bumps they knock your feet around so much that you need something to hang on to and balance. And one of the ways that you hang on and balance in mogul skiing is to plant your pole. And it's not a little teacup, little swing out, hang on to the grip kind of thing. You know, I mean, you gotta connect yourself to the world so that you stabilize you, so that in turn you can stabilize your feet as they're going up and down and into holes and into bumps and going up things and deflecting around things. So you need something. So actually I took this gal, this lady, and I gave her, again, my ski poles, and I made my ski poles longer than hers were so that it was really easy for her to find the ground with the tip of the ski pole so that she could stabilize her upper body a little bit sooner, a little bit better. And she didn't have to reach down to find the ground. And as a result of that, she was able to control the deflection that the bumps gave her so that she could turn around the bumps a little bit better. Whereas one of the things, I mean, there's quite a few things that go into bump skiing well, but one of the things is to have a ski pole that connects you to the ground and plant your pole. And I often think about planting it, you know, your pole's got to touch the snow before your feet get to the hole. You know, so if your pole beats your feet to the spot that's going to knock you out of balance, you got a better shot at catching yourself before you really get knocked over. I think that since we ski into things, you know, the front of the bump, the pole should go into just below the crest of the bump that's facing you, the face that's facing you, again, so that you got a chance to get your ski pole into the ground, hang on to something, and then be prepared to manage your feet going into that hole. And sometimes that thing, the bump, is a long ways away. So, you know, it might not be a bad thing to lengthen your ski pole a little bit versus, again, conventional thinking about in bumps is they shorten. You know, I mean, it has to do with paying attention to your environment. It has to do with paying attention to your student. And it has to do with just thinking a little bit, I don't want to say critically, but critically paying attention to what's going to help. And if the ski pole a bit shorter helps, then you make it shorter. I mean, if you're skiing fall line moguls and you're absorbing a lot of terrain and your legs are getting short, then I mean, there's no way you're going to have your ski pole up here that's going to be comfortable. So you make it shorter. You know, I mean, you see that in the World Cup all the time. I mean, sidebar, how great was it that the USA mogul skiers 1, 2, and 3 swept the podium a couple nights ago in Deer Valley? That was wonderful to watch those gals. Sorry, not the guys, just rip on that champion course in Deer Valley. That thing is tough. That's impressive. And to sweep it was wonderful for the US. But anyway, so, you know, having a ski pole that helps do the job that you need to accomplish is an important thing. And sometimes those ski poles need to be short. And sometimes I think the ski poles need to be longer, and having one for everything when we have multiple skis, just seems like if you can have something that adjusts a little bit, then you can play with it. And I also think that for our development as an organization, if you get used to skiing with a shorter ski pole, and you can utilize it well, then you should adjust it and get used to skiing with a ski pole that's really long, or one that's short and the other one that's long, so that you don't get, and the whole goal is just not to get caught being dependent and going, oh, this feels so weird, and I can no longer do the other things that I need to do. If you can ski just as well with a shorter ski pole or a longer ski pole or a medium or one short, one long, or whatever it is, then the use of the ski poles doesn't negatively affect the use of your body to get the skis to work. Just like I think it's a really good idea from time to time to switch up side cuts, to go from a slalom ski to a powder ski that's got more side cut, or a giant slalom ski, and just bouncing back and forth. I mean, if you do a really good job or a cool job, you go from a super G ski or a downhill ski to a slalom ski to a GS ski, and you learn to listen to what the ski tells you to get the edge to work and the ski to work and perform, versus, well, I always move here, so this is where I have to move because I can only move this place, and that's all I can do because that's all I know. And then you get reliant on it. Whereas if you mix that thing up a little bit, you shake up that salad bowl. Sometimes you get a nice sunflower seed on the top of the ledge versus down at the bottom with all the raisins and all the other stuff that fall through the cracks there.
Because as you're looking, like the tryout for our national teams is coming up this spring, hopefully.
Yeah.
Still planned. And I know a lot of the crew are getting ready here in the East, and I imagine the other divisions, and even our exams. I think what you were just saying there, I think a lot of our folks kind of practice the one thing. They go for the one thing that works and try to make it work everywhere. And I think that's some pretty good advice you were just saying, because you talked in our previous podcast about adaptability, your ability to adapt and change. And I don't think anybody's probably thought about using two different length of ski poles and skiing down the hill. But I think I might try that tomorrow, Angelo. How about you?
No, I'm not going to try that. Maybe, yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I have adjustable poles, but that answer that you gave, Michael, is really kind of becoming the theme that we're hearing from a lot of the people we've had on the podcast, which is there's no silver bullet answer. You have to look at the situation, what's right for this person, what's right for these conditions, what's right for the goal, so on and so forth. And I think it made me think when you were talking there about our couple of the webinars that we did in the Eastern Division early on in late spring, midsummer this year, that this observation without judgment, just your ability to look and without making any determinations and with no preconceived notions or biases, just watching the performance and in a very objective way, saying, okay, this is what I see. And then, maybe lengthening the poles would help, or, I mean, you get somebody with limited shoulder mobility due to an injury or something else, and maybe two different pole lengths would be the right answer for that person. But so I like what you're saying in terms of it's solid. It's the first step of solid coaching, right? Being able to observe. Yeah.
Well, and just paying attention to that situation and let's not get caught on, this is the way that I always do it. And this is what back to the question, Dave, this is what page 46 says to do. Or, this is the only way that it can happen. And I think often we just might not look at the situation and recognize a place where we could change it up that might make a difference. There's no reason why somebody who might be skiing with poles that are too long or too short, or boots that are too big. We've all experienced, especially boots that are too big or skis that are too big, and you got to deal with what you got. Yeah. At some point, you can't change everything all the time, but if there is the ability, then maybe take a look at it. If you're skiing in a bunch of soft snow, where we all know that if you got a ski pole basket, that's the size of a silver dollar, and you go to plant it, there's a pretty good chance that it's going to sink lower than your feet are. So if you need your ski pole, why not lengthen it so that by the time it sinks in that much, it's still back to where your hand is at the normal height that you're used to feeling it. Because the sensation of skiing in powder is so different to a lot of people. And on their feet, let's try and keep some things the same so that we're not, shaking up the whole apple cart, and just deal with managing a few of the variables that we can't control. You can't control the snow depth or the density or whatever. But you could take a ski pole, make it a little bit longer, and move it and still get into you can still find the ground about where your hand feels normal. And what you've done is you just lengthen the ski pole to help bridge the gap of not changing up too many variables, at one point in time. And just look at the situation and go, God, what can I affect here? What can I affect? And if you can't affect it, you deal with it. But if you can affect it in a positive way, then why not give it a shot? And I think the back to the question about ski pole length, I think, the arm under the basket at 90 degrees, that's a good place to start. However, if you don't consider what might be advantageous to a ski pole that's longer, or you don't consider what might be advantageous to a ski pole that's shorter, given the situation, you're just not thinking.
It's definitely hard
We've
coming
been
out of that
accused
start.
of that. That's our motto, right? Yeah. You guys aren't thinking.
We're not thinking. We don't think. We just do. We don't think. But I do know it's hard coming out of the start gate with those short poles.
Yeah. Well,
but Dave Wen I think it was Dave Wen, because Dave Wen was definitely working on trying to experiment with what pole length for a lot of our athletes in the early years.
Yeah.
And but then he was, some coaches were saying to him how slow they were out of the start gate, and he said, okay, so they're a tenth or two slow out of the start gate compared to the athletes. But then what about every turn that they move up if their poles are too big? And they lose a tenth of a second on every single gate. How slow are they going to be at the end compared to the guy who was a little bit faster out of the gate? So it's interesting looking at
you do the start and then you adjust them before you get to
adjust them at the first gate. Yeah. Or the coach throws you another pair. Yeah.
Mountain bikes have that seat height adjustment you can do on the fly. Yeah. Maybe ski poles need to have the little button to click it. But
you guys,
that might be a little bit too much. That might be really overanalyzing it. Probably if you're dealing with tenths of a second, who knows? Yeah. Darren Rawls and lots of the ski team will say hundies matter. So hundredths of a second matter. So maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. And for the average ski racer, who knows? But again, it comes back to looking at boot setup and tuning. It comes from experimenting, and if you haven't ever tried it, then you can't really talk about it. And if you don't give it a shot and play with it and see what it does or what it doesn't do, how would you know? And you might find that you might just find the thing that connects with the student, that gives you that spark that goes, okay, this is good. I feel some confidence here. So therefore you can make a deeper ask, or you can make you get that relationship and that connection going. And then you can start to feel comfortable asking people to take risks. And they feel comfortable trusting you to risk things. One of the questions we're going to talk about is the teaching fundamentals and the skiing fundamentals. And one of them is talking about risk taking. And it's not just a necessarily physical risk, like throw yourself down the hill, but there's a part that is about the mental risk of trust. If we've just met and you don't have a sense of confidence with me, are you prepared to take risks that I'm going to ask you that I think might help change and improve your performance in skiing? And when it comes to going up to a different steepness of hill or trying a new slope, is there, yep, no problem. I trust you. Let's go. Here we go into the valley of death, fear no evil. Or do they go, I'm not quite sure I trust this guy or gal to take those risks. And I think a lot of what we're finding out in good teaching is people like to get better and they like to take some risk, and it's okay to challenge, but you got to challenge when trust is there. You don't challenge when there isn't trust. And so you might find a thing through just thinking about anything. And in this case, we're talking about ski poles, but you might find something that you go, okay, that's gonna enable a little bit more trust, a little deeper connection, a little bit more success. And then because of that, I can then ask this and make this deeper ask when it comes to trying something. And they feel comfortable and they trust me and they go, boy, he or she's got a ton of confidence in me to doing this. You know what? Maybe I can. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but that's kind of how that's how that whole thing works together, so that we're really affecting people's day. And they're like, I had a great time. I skied better. I took some chances. Yeah, I fell or I got slapped once or twice, but it was fun. Yeah. I went a little faster than I was used to. And I got able to, I got to get a little bit of air under my wings and stretch myself a little bit. And it was exhilarating. I mean, within the boundaries of self-preservation and safety.
So when you're looking at the teaching fundamentals, the teaching skills, do you think the managing risk and having people take risks is maybe one that's overlooked? Because I know in the exams we hear a lot, it's just about looking up the hill, kind of the physical risk, but it's not a lot about the emotional risk or having people kind of explore something they might not be comfortable with.
Yeah, it's a big portion. I mean, it isn't just physical risk. It's putting yourself out there. It's being vulnerable to say, as the teacher, being vulnerable to say, hey, you know what? I'm not sure that we're connecting here. And I feel like if I could say, look, I'm not quite sure we're connecting and grooving this whole time, like we did 10 minutes ago or whatever. What just took place there? Was that something that I did? Did I create a situation where you shut down? And I think just admitting that there's waves and peaks and valleys in relationships, whether they're short-term or long-term or for an hour or for a day or whatever life, you admit that and you go, look, I feel like we lost the connection. There was something there. We were doing great. And then we just kind of stalled. Is that something that I did? And you can be honest telling me that, yeah, you know what? I took 3 runs by myself and you never looked at me once, or you haven't ridden the chair with me. You haven't ridden the chair with me yet. Or, you made a comment about this, that, or the other thing. And that didn't sit well with me. But it's just in there is taking a risk to say, I don't have all the answers and I'm not perfect at this. I know a lot about it potentially, but if we're not connecting, let me know. And a good coach will become the chameleon to make sure that connection is there. And I think when that type of vulnerability or emotional risk takes place by the coach, the teacher or the student then can go, boy, you know what, that guy, gal, they put themselves out there a little bit. And I really appreciated the honesty. And I now feel comfortable going, no, you know what? I had a bad night. I'm a little hungover and I'm a little tired. I could use a glass of water. Or, you know what? I didn't feel really safe on that run, or I was a little bit wobbly. And then you start to, that level of connection gets a little bit deeper so that they then go, hey, you know what, Dave, I'd really like to go for this, especially when it comes to making that jump from the beginner area to that first level of terrain. We all know that not every ski resort is perfect. And you feel like, you know what, technically they could probably do it. I think I could connect them to the places that are flat and the snow condition is perfect right now. I feel like we can push this envelope and go. And you have that conversation and they go, yeah, you know what, I trust you. Or they go, you know what, I'm not quite sure. And I'm gonna opt to just stay here for the afternoon. And I'm okay with that. When you know that they really could have done something spectacular, maybe up above and be gotten out of the beginner area and up into the ski area. So yeah, I mean, emotional risk it's all over the place.
Yeah.
But, where we were talking about play and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
How do you start to figure things out if you've done the same thing, or you teach the same way, or you use the same progression all the time? How do you find out what works? I mean, back to ski poles. I mean, you don't start to really understand things until you start to go, well, let me try this. And no, that didn't work. Let me try this. Yep, that kind of worked. Let me try this. That always works. So then you end up gravitating to what always works, and it always works, and it always works. But could your students progress a little? Could a different student progress a little faster if you gave them an opportunity to try something different? I mean, I think we all know that, snow conditions change and you day to day, especially in the beginner area. And if your beginner area is at the bottom of the ski area where it gets a lot of sunlight and it gets warmer, it has a tendency to get softer sooner. And then it, as a result, has a tendency to get harder sooner. But you have to read the student. You have to have that conversation to go. I mean, you can't take somebody up the top of at Heavenly. You can't take somebody up the top of the magic carpet, having never skied before, on a middle of March day that's been clear at night, so the snow is able to set up, and it's just, I mean, it's got beautiful groom lines in it, but they're frozen solid, and say, hey, point it. Let's see what happens. Go for it. Yeah, you're good. I mean, you end up hitting the chain link fence pretty fast. Yeah. And we've all seen that. We've all seen boyfriends and girlfriends and mothers and daughters and fathers and sons and friends. Or there are days when you get, a new layer of man-made snow. And as a result of that, it's really slow from the top. You could go to the top and go send it. And they don't make it to the parking lot. They don't even come close to the edge or the netting, and they do it really slow. And then you can, on days like that, you could take somebody that's never skied and start there, start from the top of the magic carpet or the Mighty Might or the lift, because the snow is slow and it's soft and it's perfect. Versus other days when it's frozen slush and you got, even on the flats, it's too slippery. So, it's just, again, it's paying attention to the surrounding. It's listening to the student, and it's assessing what is too much of a risk or too little of a risk. And then going there and saying, hey, this is what I'm thinking, or, that they're safe. So you don't have to say, hey, look, you know what? You could die here. But I think you're going to make it. So off you go. But there are people that I think that in a lot of cases, students that rise to that occasion and then they go, wow, that was awesome. That was exciting. It was, there was a little bit of risk, I was maybe a little bit wobbly, but it was fun. And you gotta deal with it. I just watched part of a documentary on Action Park, Vernon Valley, Great Gorge in New Jersey. And it's about the park and how it just trashed people when it was open, and that's too much risk. It was called Class Action Park, I think was the title of it.
Well, all I could think about was, I'm just thinking Angelo's planning on going to National Academy. He's going to be skiing with Michael, and Michael's going to go, you got it. You got this run right here, Angelo. And he's looking down through these cliffs, and he's going to remember this going, he's really telling me I might die here. I might die.
Well, but you have it. I mean, you have that all the time. You have people that we go to the Academy of Big Sky, and they can ski anywhere on Big Sky. And then you take them up the tram and you plan on skiing, a place that is maybe not the big couloir, but a place off of the top of the tram at Big Sky. And the pitch isn't any different.
Right.
The snow isn't any different. The rocks are still the rocks. The trees are still the trees, but they're in at the top, and now suddenly the environment, because they're in Big Sky, suddenly it freaks them out when you go, it's the same thing. It's like Hoosiers, right? The movie Hoosiers, when the guy came out and brought all the kids out and they started to measure the height of the net and the foul line. And I mean, look, it's all the same. You've done this a million times. You just haven't done it in this arena, but the environment, is the same. So it's okay to take a little bit of risk there, potentially.
I had a thought.
We could tell.
That was a while ago, but we were talking about play and experimentation.
Yep.
And talking about people being in a comfort zone. And I think most of the conversation has been about students, but I had this thought about instructors and their opportunity to experiment, and we, the three of us, we've had the fortune of being able to work full time. And you do that for a few years, or a lot of years, and you have the opportunity to have a lot of experiences where, like, I forgot my poles one day, so I borrowed Dave's. They were a little bit longer and it felt weird, and this is what I did, and so on and so forth. But a lot of our listeners are weekenders, and they don't have a lot of time to, plan experimentation. And so it's probably pretty easy to fall into a repetition, the days are short, right? And you want to go to après and have fun and whatnot. And I think that's I don't know that I have a question so much as I just think that's a real challenge for part-timers to be in an experimentation mindset, when it's so much easier to go back to the sure thing, but what I'm hearing you say is, and you believe it and you do it. It's obvious that you do it. You do mess around with your skis. You do mess around with your boots and your pole length and see what the effect is. And it would just be a lot of value in that if weekenders made the time to do it.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, absolutely. 100%. But there are places for it. I mean, how many times do we teach traversing? If we, a lot of instances, most of those progressions that you teach, those things that you have, it's straight line stuff. So maybe go across the hill a little bit more, maybe instead of talking about each run, every run, maybe if it's on the Mighty Might or on a beginner chairlift, maybe you go, that was great. Let's go do it again. I know Robin will teach beginner folks how to ski backwards. Often so that they're used to going forward like that or turning, but are they comfortable going backwards? And what could a student learn about controlling their skis if you gave them an opportunity to try going backwards or going straight for a little bit longer, or making 2 turns instead of 5 turns, or making 5 turns instead of 2 turns, or traversing when you usually go, straight down the fall line and do like a fan progression. Maybe you start on the opposite end of the fan progression and you do things in a traverse now and again. So I think there are places where you can still figure out how to experiment and play in your teaching, even if it's something that isn't a full-time job that you don't spend countless hours thinking about, considering, questioning, wondering. And I think it is still possible. It might mean paying attention to what some other people around are doing. It might mean thinking about it during the course of your work week. But when you can recognize, and I think this is an important thing everywhere, even in development, when you recognize patterns that you do, going, okay, I recognize this is the pattern, and break it. I mean, we all go to our home ski area and we go skiing, and we probably, when we free ski, we take a warm up run on B slope, and then we go over to exhibition, and we make the snow on the left side of exhibition is always better than the right side. And we make short turns here, and then we go across and we stop in the same place. And because there's a nice little lip and a roll. So we stop on top of that, and then we can see down, and we're in the safe spot to be seen from above. And we don't get too close to the trees because there's always a snowmaking jump coming out of the trees that the kids always get from 5 to 8. So we want to stay away from there because there's a dark shadow. But starting to recognize those patterns, and then go, you know what, I'm going to write it down. We're going to get to a bunch of things here talking about taking notes. I'm going to write that down, or I'm going to recognize my routine, and I'm going to break it up somehow. Even if it's making 15 turns instead of 5 turns, even if it's making short turns instead of long turns, or even if it's the right side going right to left, go left to right of the hill. It's just finding those patterns, recognizing those patterns, and then trying to just cut them and separate them for a little bit and see if you can't wedge something else in there, or take a piece out and see how the 2 shorter pieces connect. It can be done. It just takes a little bit of effort and a little bit of desire. If you don't want to, you're not gonna, because this is what works, and why try something different? That's the way it is. If I gotta do the motivating for you, chances are you're not going to do the learning.
So how much do you take notes, Michael? Do you keep? I know a couple staff members here in the East that they actually have notebooks. They just keep taking notes. Erickson is that guy. He's got notebooks and notebooks. Like one Harold Smith does. Are you that note taker, or that you save them, or just to jot them down to remember them? Is it better jotting them? Yeah, there it is. There it is. Yeah.
Let's see. This notebook started out in 2016 with the task list that we did in Breckenridge for the last tryout. We go into staff pairings. We go into some teaching things. Here's a phone call with I don't know if you can see that, with Sasha Rarick and Chip Knight and an Austrian ski instructor. Flip a bunch of pages here, and let's see, find something interesting. Future team ideas, a clinic with Dr. Jim Taylor on mental prep. I'm a note taker. I take notes.
You've rubbed off on some of your students, because I know Lil Pearson from New Hampshire here up at the Balsams. She's a note taker, and you'd see him. You'd get to proofread them, I know, before or approve them before she sent them out to the group after Masters.
Yeah, well, after the Masters Academy, we would take notes, and there would have to be a sod. If Lil is listening to this up in the Balsams, a sod, a saying of the day. Yeah. And sometimes it would be just a little humor, funny and slapstick, and maybe a little off color. And other times it would be poignant and technical. But yeah, you take notes, and that's the way that when you do that, you start to remember things. For example, I can remember a notebook that I have that talked about an academy that I once had at Snowbird, and the snow was perfect. And the group, we were able to do anything we wanted to, and it was just beautiful. Then the next day, it was a day old snow, and they all went into it expecting, to get the same result, but the snow had changed. And in my notebook for that day was, the very last page was, be careful tomorrow. Caution, the snow's going to change. And that was the last note that I took of the previous day. And so I remembered that, so that when we got into the next day, I could go, hey gang, let's time out here. Things are changing on us. The sun has come out. It's low elevation. It's southern exposure. That snow is not going to be what it was like. So don't dive in there expecting to get the same condition or feelings. Let's go into it and figure it out and see what it takes, because it's going to take a little bit different approach. But yeah, I do that. I do that a lot. I learned, taking notes is a good thing, but I learned that a lot from spending time with U.S. ski team girls when they have notes about courses. I can remember when the World Championships are in Cortina, And when I had the honor to be a part of the women's World Cup speed team, when Lindsay was reaching the threshold of the winningest female in Cortina, the section that I had, she came down and looked at me, and I'm looking at her, and I mean, this is Lindsey Vonn. And she's looking at me for a course report, and I'm like, "You're Lindsey Vonn. Tell me what it is you want me to look for, and I'll tell you what I see." And she was great at saying, "Look, if this person does this line, I want to know where they skied. If this racer does this line, I want to know that they skied this line. And then I'll make a decision on which line I want to take, because I'm watching it up on the TV monitor and I'm looking at the times. So I'll know where I can go and where I can go fast and where I can take some risk, and be good." But it was her note taking that allowed her to say, "Look, this gate has been moved in over the course of the last 8 years. Because when it was moved out, it made more of a turn, and then this jump was higher and more. So they slowly moved it in. So I don't have to worry about this. But if you watch for this line on this gear and this line on this gear, and you can tell me the differences, then I'll make the choice about where I want to go." And that's because of note taking. That's because of note taking on her part, and utilizing those to educate me so that I could help her be as successful as she could be. I mean, it's Lindsey Vonn. She's been there and done that a bajillion times. So, but note taking is important. And there was just a picture. Breezy Johnson just talked about her notebook of the year. Loren Ross is a huge note taker. After every run, they write down feelings and sensations, and they go back through it and filter it, because somewhere in there there will be a moment when they get stuck. And if they can find that note that unsticks them, that's a good thing.
So this is my big question for the night, that relates to this: the note taking, the cognitive part, the tactical part, understanding the tactics or where Lindsay wanted to go. But how does it go into the feeling? Like, how do you, Michael Rogan, get people to get out of the cognitive or take the cognitive material and put it into the skiing so that we become more kinesthetic and how to make the ski react and feel that back? Because you talked a lot previous about feelings from the ski and understanding the snow ski interaction.
Yep. Well, that's huge. I mean, that's a huge step to go from understanding things to then feeling things and being able to react to it. Part of it comes from experiencing different snow conditions. Part of it comes from paying attention to how those snow conditions reacted with different skis, potentially, a narrow ski versus a wide ski. I know I forgot what soft snow felt like on a narrow ski because a year or so ago, because I spent so much time on wide skis where you got away with stuff. And then suddenly, the ski sunk instead of floated. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute, this is different. I got to go back into the memory banks a little bit. But, I think the way that you become that feeler is spending time when you can, sliding around snow with your eyes closed, and just really just listening to what it is you're doing. I think getting a sense of when you can really feel like a bump or a pile of snow hit the front of your ski and start to deflect it, and when do you feel the ski slow down? Going into things maybe sideways or more sideways or with weight on one ski or the other ski, and feeling how the snow reacts and it slows the foot down or it speeds the foot up. And then just recognizing the situation that goes, there's an opportunity to learn something here if I just don't breeze by it and go, what was that? You when it knocks you around, you stop and look and go, what was that? Instead of, whoa, what was that? You do it instead of just blowing by, you do it with some type of inquisitiveness, if that's a word, and go, whoa, what was that? And let me remember that. And if I get a chance to come back through here, I'm going to hit that same spot. Ice is a great example in the East Coast. When you hit that slick spot of man-made snow, it all looks the same, but it doesn't react the same. How quick do you recognize that underneath your foot? Are you paying attention? Maybe if you know you're going to go down that run, or you pay attention to riding the lift to people skiing down and going, you know what? There's the fourth person that slid out there. There must be something there. And I know that I'm going to end up there at some point during the course of the day. And if I file that in my memory bank, that I'm going to end up there, then it might not surprise me as much as it surprised them. And I might have a better shot at it, because at least I know that I'm going into it knowing what to expect.
Yeah. So as we move from the learning theory into ski technique, we kind of push the other team members that have been on to not just list the 5 fundamentals, but kind of give their perspective, which I think it fits kind of that description you have of, it's not on page 46, which I could look in and see where our ski fundamentals. I don't know the exact page number. I guess I'm going to have to. Pole use. but I mean, what is Michael Rogan like when you watch skiing? And it can be it can be World Cup skiing or just skiing that you like. That is really awesome. That puts a smile on my face. I enjoy watching that. That's what the skis and things were designed to do. I mean, what is it you see? I appreciate a couple of things. I appreciate certainly balance, people that are balanced. And I have said for a long time that your creativity in skiing, people that can be a little creative. And I've said for a long time that the creativity of your skiing is directly proportional to the quality of your balance. If I'm well balanced, I can be creative. If I'm not well balanced, I can't be creative. So as kind of a global view, that's one of the things that I look at, that the creativity of your skiing is directly proportional to the quality of your balance. So with that as the global view, big view, and I'd look at a teammate, Terry Barber from the East. I mean, that guy can. Mad River Glenn and Terry Barber were a match made in heaven for a long time. Yeah, you watch him ski. It's just I just see fun, and I've heard him say it. He just wants people to watch his skiing and look at it and say that guy's having fun.
Yeah,
and he is creative. I mean, it's pretty creative watching him come down Mad River Glen or anywhere.
Yeah, where he can put his feet is pretty special. But but I guess from a technical point of view. I really, really have been paying attention to. We're having a conversation with my teammates about some things that you've been seeing over the winter, because we haven't had time to be together much. But I'm paying attention to. I've been watching lots of ski racing, and the differences between the top 5 and that group of 10 people around the flip, around the top 30, the differences between those, because I think making the flip is what they call it, or making the second run, or scoring points in the World Cup is, it's hard to do. It's hard to do for anybody, but I think especially for the men, the guys, because you could be on the World Cup at 22 years old and you're racing against, men. At 22, you're still a boy racing against men. And there's certainly some people that are really good, but, when you got to stand in the start gate with a guy like Vincent Kreichmeyer from Austria, he's a man. He's big, he's mature, he's been there a bunch of times. You're not going to surprise him. And when you're a 22-year-old kid who's just trying to cut their teeth, it might not be a fair fight. But what I really like about those guys is just the stableness of their stance. And I know that's a big thing, a big long way view, 10,000 foot view, but their stance doesn't falter. They can take getting compressed. They can take getting light. They can do that while they're turning, and their stance doesn't break down. Their ankles are engaged. They're not over bent. They're not bent. They don't get squashed and bent at the waist. don't get twisted as they get squashed and lose a ski, or when they get light or go over a little bit of a roll. If they're a little inside, they end up with the outside ski way up there trying to catch themselves. They're able to get light and get heavy, and their basic stance just doesn't falter. It doesn't get affected by the dynamics of a turn, or the speed, or the snow condition, or the pressures within a turn. So watching that, and then watching that group that's just missing the second run or doesn't get points, and watching their stance get squashed. They get a little too countered, or a little too rotated, or a little too inclined, or a little bit on the inside ski, or a little bit on the back of the outside skier, or in between transitions, they don't get back to the center. Their foot, their new support foot, or their new base of support doesn't get in a fore aft plane, doesn't get underneath them, or they're not engaged and connected to the front of the boot, or the front of the ski. And as a result, when the pressures really show up, when stress really shows up, they get squashed and they wobble a little bit. And the ski, you can see the ski kind of falter a little bit, or their back, their spine just kind of, and you could just, and then they gotta go straight for a little bit and take some of that stress away from them. And now they're, 10 feet offline. So I'm paying attention to where the support foot, the base of support, and the center of mass, and how that relationship goes. The connection between that, which I feel is in the ankle. Is that engaged in keeping you? Are you working to stay over top of your skis? Or are you a little bit loose, and therefore you overcompensate and you end up too far forward, or you end up too far back? And, a mantra of mine recently has been, can I get in the middle, stay in the middle, and protect the middle? Yeah. Can I put my middle in the middle of my ski, and can I keep it there? And can I protect that? And can I cherish that? And can I be a steward of that and maintain it and keep it going, even though the terrain is doing this, or the snow conditions doing that, or, there's people around, but can I keep me and my foot, my new outside ski, connected enough so that I feel like I can then be balanced, so that therefore I can then be creative. I'm always paying attention to separation this way. There's all kinds of talk about square, countered, separate, rotated, inclined, balanced. I mean, there's all kinds of things there, but always paying attention to it. Again, if you don't know the limits of it, it's hard to find the middle, or if you only have one point of reference, it's hard to find the range. So I'm always paying attention to that stuff. I'm always paying attention to what my ski's telling me. I'm always paying attention to fatigue rates. Am I not going up enough to get some rest? Am I going down too much and I'm tired? Am I going up too much and I'm losing contact with the snow, so therefore I can't get my ski to do it? Am I going down too much where I end up a little bit behind and I can't get the front of my ski to do it? Am I doing it moving from one turn to the next the right way? I've got a couple of sayings there. I always think about shifting my weight or my balance before I change my edge, and changing my edge before I change the ski's direction. Knowing that those three things kind of happen really quickly, but if I can shift my balance and not necessarily go over here, but start that process, if I can shift my balance to my new turning ski before I change its edge, and if I can change its edge or start that process before I try and redirect or pivot the ski, then I usually end up with a pretty good turn. I feel pretty good about that. Is that specific enough?
Yeah. I guarantee there's a couple thoughts he's smiling, because he loves the creativity part. He wants some style points in skiing, is Angelo's thing. He's just shaking his head.
No, you know what I'm thinking the whole time you're talking. I don't even know why. Like, how much do you ski alone?
Yeah.
No, not much.
No.
No, but I can, if I'm turning, if it's my run, then I ski alone. I might be with a group of people, but I'm I'm often paying attention to what I'm doing, but I can pay attention to that for a couple of turns and then watch who I'm skiing with. I mean, yesterday I was with a group of folks that are going through the tryouts, the selection process from the Western Division, and there were plenty of opportunities where we were skiing together as a group, but there are plenty of opportunities for me to go, okay, I'm focused on me right now and what my ski's doing and as it relates to what they're doing, but I'm able to do that.
You ever put on a civilian jacket and hide?
Yeah, on a day off. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have clothes that don't have patches on them or aren't a uniform. And yeah, I go out. Robin and I we go out, try and go out once a week on a day off, and even if it's for a couple of runs. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and I mean, but I've had that question, man. We don't want to go skiing with you because you're always going to be watching and critical. Man, I can not watch skiing just as easily as I can watch skiing.
Yeah.
If you say you don't want me to pay attention, I can not pay attention pretty easily. But I can also, my default move is to always pay attention, not because I'm being critical or judgmental of that performance, but I might pick up something that might come in handy in a week from now or a year from now.
I was just thinking about that and those habits again of I'm not picking on weekend instructors, but you meet up with the same people, you go to the same spot on the hill, you do the same run, you go to lineup, you go to après at this time, and just not a lot of time for the kind of reflective experimentation that you're talking about.
Yeah.
But what I'm hearing you say is you sneak it in, and I talk to instructors. One of the phrases that kills me is personal skiing, my personal skiing. Like I have this set of skiing when I'm in a lesson or a clinic, and then this set of skiing when I'm by myself. Like I don't understand the notion of personal skiing, but I try to get my staff to understand that, the stuff we worked on your very high-end clinic on Thursday night is the same move you're going to make with beginners all weekend long in the beginner bowl. We're still talking about this same piece. So practice it there, and sometimes that connection isn't easily made for folks, but you're a very busy ski instructor, so
yeah, fortunately
you're still able to sneak your own stuff in there. And that's a good message for folks to hear tonight.
Yeah. Well, it's trying to pay attention. It's trying to pay attention to what I'm doing, even when I'm with a student or someone's following me. I'm able to pay attention to what I feel like the ski's doing, what I feel like my body's doing, how I feel like I'm moving, how it works. I'm able to push my feet out ahead of me and pull my feet underneath me and get a little twisted to remember what those sensations feel like, so that you can, when it comes time to shift gears and I got an hour off to take a couple of runs and feel like you're not, bunting it all over the place.
Yeah. So how much would you agree, Michael, that all of your beginner coaching and being lower on the mountain, working on the fundamentals, and having that much time working on those basics and all the time practicing with your students is really laying that foundation for your upper level skiing for you and your stance and how you connect with the boot and your ankle and all the stuff you're talking to technique. Because I know Tom Chassis, when he was at Attitash, when I was there and worked with him a lot, he hammered on me that you're working on your skiing right there on that snow belt, right on the learning center.
Yep. I think you do. I think you look at newer instructors as they develop and they spend a lot of time in beginner areas. You look at their touch. We're talking about feeling earlier. That's where I think a lot of that stuff can develop by skiing backwards, by, skiing on a foot and having a kid or a student and helping them out. And then, there's a cone behind you. So you got to react quickly and miss the cone or the little flag that's in the snow and, stepping around, skating up the magic carpet or or scooter turns, and you take a ski off and you zip up the Mighty Might or whatever it is, the beginner lift to go help a student out. Or, I mean, I think that's when you putting your skis on when you're sliding and not really watching, where you can feel the toe piece and know how much the ski brake is going to drag, and you're dragging along. And I mean, that's, I think, when you really start to develop your touch. I will say though, that at some point in time, you got to dive into the deep end.
Yes.
Sometime you got to get out of the kiddie pool and you got to test it. And I think that's that's an important piece, is you got to experiment, you got to feel around, and you got to learn stuff, but then you got to go out and you got to hold a flame to it and see if it still works. Yeah. And then you take that information back and you try and sort it out, and you build up slow to it until you get to the point where you test it again. Yeah. So it can't go without being tested. Yeah. At some point in time, you gotta get it on the sharp end.
Yeah. How much do you think when they go and test it, they expect too much perfection? And when they go into that deep end and they get up on the steeps, they get in the bumps, and it kind of blows up a little bit.
Probably in the beginning, the first couple of times they jump into the deep end, probably a little too much.
Yeah.
But if it's not getting better, then you got to look at what you're doing. Sooner or later, you got to test it, but also sooner or later, you ought to be able to reap the benefits and ought to pay off.
Yeah. Got to change something if it isn't working, right? Yeah.
Michael, what's the most recent frustration you've had in your skiing?
In skiing or in teaching?
No, your performance.
I got a brand new pair of ski boots that are beautiful. Oh, they're so good, but they're just a little off from my other pair, and I can't quite figure out what it is. They ski wonderfully. And if I'm feeling like I'm doing my best, it is my best. They're really good, but I am struggling because they're a little bit different than my old ones, and I'm used to my old ones. And these are a little quicker, a little bit more responsive. And I'm struggling, especially on my right foot. My A-frame shows up on my right foot. It doesn't on my left. I've been told that by a bunch of folks, both friends and foe, for a while. And my answer is still the same. I mean, if it feels the ski's doing what I want them to do, and I don't care what you're looking at, because I know what I'm feeling, and I'm good with that.
Yeah. Was one of those telling you that A-frames there was Mr. Lipton when you were telling him he was rotating, or?
Yeah, well, maybe.
Maybe. Oh, well, that was awesome, man. We definitely will have you in the docket next winter, man. Maybe early in the fall. Or maybe some of your prep in the fall. Maybe we can get you on to chat with us about how you and Robin are getting yourselves ready, which I know you get yourselves ready because you ski all summer, but maybe the transition to the north from the southern hemisphere or something like that.
That'd be great. So far, this is, say third time's a charm. Maybe this one will actually grab some traction, gentlemen.
There you go.
We'll see. But it's been a pleasure spending these last couple of hours with you. So I really, truly enjoy it. And I thank you for the audience. It's fun.
Yeah, well, I know Angela and I definitely appreciate it. And I know a lot of the audience does. This gives them, as they've said, another way to connect with some of our national team members and just kind of connect when they're not having the locker room tech talks and that kind of stuff.
So we were talking to our union rep, and like when one of us takes a vacation, you're going to be the fill-in guy.
There you go. Yeah.
That'd be great.
He's on the permanent.
Yeah, wait till I tell you what our budget is.
We got snow. There's a snow cave for everybody.
That's right. It's been a pleasure, Michael. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you, guys.
All righty.